Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. Number to call if you want to join the conversation, 888-589-8840. Happy to take your comments. We've been talking about religious liberty throughout the program, the threat the homosexual agenda represents, prayer in schools, prayer in graduation. My thesis that the secular fundamentalist groups are taking advantage of the South because people are so nice down here. They just roll over instead of stiffening their spines. It's just easy pickings for them. Bullies go where they don't get any resistance, and this is where they're finding they've got no resistance. Like to know what you think about that. And, back to this Benghazi thing just for a minute. I mean, this to me is explosive. We talked over the whole business about how insecure our own information indicated that this compound was one of the 14 worst, most insecure, most dangerous diplomatic posts in the world out of 264. This was one of the 14 which was rated high or critical in every single area of exposure and vulnerability. And yet Hillary Clinton continued to turn down requests for increased security. And by the way, you want to know how the networks are dealing with this morning? On the morning shows this morning, 56 minutes for Jodi Arias and then that deal up in Cleveland with the kidnappers and the serial rapists. 56 minutes on tabloid news, 7 minutes on Benghazi and national security. You know, and I talked with you about this February 17 Martyrs Brigade. Talked with you about this yesterday. This was a Martyrs Brigade that's actually affiliated with Al-Qaeda. They have a Facebook page that has the Al-Qaeda flag on it. So this was the Libyan militia. This is unbelievable to me, ladies and gentlemen. We've got one of the most insecure facilities in the world. Our own people tell us that. One of the most insecure facilities in the entire world. Hillary Clinton turns down repeated requests for security, and what they say, well, listen, hire some locals. So who does the Libyan government assign or suggest or recommend? Who do they designate to provide security against Al-Qaeda from Al-Qaeda? They select this or to provide security against Al-Qaeda. They select a group that is affiliated with Al-Qaeda. Hey, we got an idea for you, this February 17 Martyrs Brigade. Now realize these were the guys that were manning the checkpoints that the attackers had to come through to get to the compound. There were all kinds of checkpoints they had to get through. And so this February 17 Martyrs Brigade, the one that were there, just waving them on through, sending them right on to their target. And Blake Farron told from Texas yesterday, asked Gregory Hicks whether the department was aware that the militia had any ties to Islamic extremists. Actually asked Eric Nordstrom, who had been the regional security officer, did the department, the State Department, were they aware that the militia had ties to Islamic extremists? So he's asked this question, did you guys know that this outfit that you were paying to provide protection against Al-Qaeda, did you know that this group itself had ties to Islamic extremists? Absolutely, he said. Yeah, we had that discussion on a number of occasions, the last of which was when there was a Facebook posting of a threat that named Ambassador Stevens. So yeah, we knew these were bad guys. And it turns out, as I mentioned yesterday, that they weren't even on duty that night. At least some of them weren't, because they were on strike. Didn't think they were getting paid enough. Thought the hours were too long. According to a report published by the Senate Homeland Security Committee on December 30th, 2012, a member of the February 17 Martyrs Brigade had warned, this September 8th, this is 3 days now. No, this was December 30th. They warned the regional security officer at the State Department compound in Benghazi on September 8th. So the report's December. This warning was delivered on September 8th, 3 days before the attack. The RSO, that is this Eric Nordstrom, he was warned that the militia would no longer protect the movements of American diplomats in the city. And that specifically included the imminent visit of Ambassador Stevens. So our people knew that not even this militia, this extremist-connected militia, that they weren't even going to be around to provide help for Ambassador Stevens, but he went anyway. And then we discovered that there were 4 members of this militia, this al-Qaeda-friendly militia, that actually lived inside the Benghazi compound and actually outnumbered the number of security people that we had inside the compound 4-3. I mean, the more you dig into this thing, the absolute worse it's get. 888-589-8840. A couple of sound bites before we go to the phones. This is Gregory Hicks, clip 5. This is Gregory Hicks talking about the payback that he got for raising questions about Susan Rice. Remember, Susan Rice is at their 5 Sunday morning talk shows. It was all about the video. This was a spontaneous thing. It was a mob deal because they didn't like the video. She went out there and said that on 5 Sunday morning talk shows. Gregory Hicks was appalled. He said his jaw dropped when he heard her say that, and he complained about it, and he tells what happened.
Yet, right after the attack and before the attack, you had all kinds of praise for your leadership. You got a Secretary Clinton. You got a call from the president praising you for your service and how you handled things. Was there a seminal moment in your mind to all this praise and appreciation turned into something else?
In hindsight, I think it began after I asked the question about Ambassador Rice's statement on the TV shows.
Mm-hmm. And, anyone listening to this hearing today, if they don't have questions, I mean, there was some comment made about, well, there was a few people in Libya that had a problem with this YouTube video, but the overwhelming evidence is that this was a terrorist attack. Everybody knew it, but yet someone higher up decided to run with this story, this facade, and they kept it for a long time. And I would think that everyone sitting here wants to know the answer why that was done. So what other impediments have you had, or how have you felt since deciding to come forward? Do you feel like they've treated you any differently from that point on?
Well, after I was angry with the way I'd been criticized, I thought it was unfounded. I felt like I'd been tried and convicted in absentia, and but I decided I was going to go back and try to redeem myself in
What is your job right now?
What is my job? I am a foreign affairs officer in the Office of Global Intergovernmental Affairs.
Okay, a far cry from where you were and your level of capabilities.
Yes, sir.
He says, I'm buried in the basement. I am a nameless, faceless bureaucrat in some cubicle now in the basement. I have been demoted, second in command. And what he's talking about is when the attack went down that night, he got a call from Barack Obama the next day. He got a call from Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. Great job. You handled yourself professionally. You showed bravery. You showed courage. You showed good decisions. We're proud of you. Couldn't be prouder. And then he hears Susan Rice go out and blame this thing on the video, and his jaw hits the floor, and he says, that's not the way it went down. And so now he gets demoted. He was in charge of the mission. He was chief of mission after Ambassador Stevens was killed. Now he's wasting away in some basement cubicle in Washington, D.C. as a nameless, faceless bureaucrat. Now, here is how the liberals are handling this and the media. Then we'll go to the phones. This is House Democrat Matt Cartwright on with Tamron Hall, MSNBC, which gave virtually no coverage whatsoever to the hearings yesterday. This is how they're going to handle it. Nothing to see here. Move along. Let's listen.
I expected a real bombshell to come out today. And I literally sat on the edge of my seat listening for the bombshells to come out. And Tamron, they didn't happen. There was no news today. There was nothing today that we didn't already know about. Now, I want to tell you, I honor all of us on the panel. We honor the sacrifices made by these witnesses, their commitment to our country, and the truthfulness of their testimony as well. But really, there wasn't anything new that we hadn't already seen before and that hadn't already been rehashed again and again. So there isn't much news today, Tamron. We've all heard the expression, making a mountain out of a molehill. They don't do that here today in Washington, evidently. They make a mountain out of nothing at all.
So I make a mountain out of nothing at all. 4 dead bodies, they make a mountain out of nothing at all. That's going to be the liberal spin. Nothing to see here. Move along. Nothing new. We've heard it all before. Get over yourself. Let's go to the phones. Let's go to Dave in Hopewell, Virginia. Dave, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
It's not why I called, but with regard to the Benghazi affair, I would just like to simply say that the regime in Washington, the deviousness of the regime in Washington is only blanketed by their incompetence. But that's not why I called. Earlier, I'd like to revisit your earlier caller, John, who was concerned about the misperception of people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, when I stand on the word of God,
that we were going to be perceived as whiny.
Yes.
Yeah.
If somebody misperceives my position, that's their problem, not mine. Now, I would try to enlighten them. If I'm allowed to, I would try to, explain to them why I believe what I believe. But if they misperceive me, that's their problem. That's not my problem.
Yeah. Well,
and I think, that's the way I would handle it. And another thing. And
let me just make one, Dave. Let me just interject one comment here. Another way the left goes about this is they say their feelings got hurt. They were offended by something that was said, by something that was done, and they will actually launch a court case based on the fact that their feelings were hurt, that they were offended. Well, that is entirely subjective, completely entirally subjective. Anyway, go ahead, Dave. Finish your thought.
Well, all right. It seems like we misuse the word homophobia. My Random House College dictionary defines homophobia, or any kind of phobia for that matter. A phobia is an irrational fear of a subject or a state of being or a person. I'm not afraid of them, and I don't hate them. It's like the Bible teaches. We hate what they do. God hates what they do, but He doesn't hate the people. And I don't have an irrational fear.
Well, that's a good point, Dave, and I need to let you go. We're up against a hard break, but Dave making a great point there. A homophobia is an irrational fear. Well, we're not afraid of homosexuals, and our concerns about homosexuality are not irrational. They're grounded in the best in research. Focal Point back in 2.